Hi guys, today we're going to paint some Christmas ornaments on some cotton watercolor paper. This is better paper, and I put some washi tape around the edges of it so it's nice and clean, puts a little frame around it. And all I'm going to do is I drew 2 circles. I used whatever I had around and traced around a circle and put the little lid on the ornament. And now I'm just going to wet all around the ornament, and I'm not going to touch the ornaments at all. We're just going to carefully go around the edges of it and just wet the whole entire background. I mixed up some greens, and I'm just going to drop in the greens all around this background. I'm going to go yellowish and lighter on one side, and then the other side I'm going to try to make it a little bit darker. And I'm just using different kinds of greens, like a yellow green and a blue green. Whatever I have in my palette, that's what I'm going to use. I like having fun when I do my watercolor paintings. I do it for, it's kind of meditative and it's just fun, and really you can get in the flow and hours will go by and I don't worry about making mistakes ever. I really don't. So here I have, you can see on one side of my canvas I have more yellow, and on the bottom more yellow green, and then I added some blues to it, and I'm just dropping them in kind of like how the branches of the tree might go around the ornaments, how they would be hanging on there. And I'm not going crazy, it's just going to blend into that nice wet background. So I'm using my number 8 Princeton Velvet Touch brush, and it comes to like a sharp point, and it's a round brush, so I can do a lot of different types of strokes with this brush. I really love it. And I have a number 3 also that I'm using. The number 3 brush I'm using is a Princeton Aqua Elite, and I'm pretty sure I got both of these at like Michael's store or Hobby Lobby, one or the other. Sometimes I get them offline too, but sometimes I see a sale and I can't resist getting new brushes a lot. But these are my favorites. They come to a point and they just are really great brushes for watercolor. So here I am just dropping in some darker colors. I dropped in a lot of browns because the stem of your pine branches have the brown stem, and then I go in and I make some leaf shapes, with the brush. And here I'm taking a Q-tip and I'm just dabbing up some of the water. Now you can see there's a shine on my watercolor, so you can see that it's wet, but it's not sopping wet. There's no puddles here. It's just kind of a layer of wetness, and as long as it's wet, it's going to do some beautiful bleeding and just mixing of colors right on there for wet on wet techniques. And as long as it stays wet, that paint is going to keep moving. So if you like what you're seeing, I like to let things dry naturally, but if you were to dry it with a hair dryer or a heat gun, you're going to stop that process from expanding. And so you have to, you live and you learn. As more that you paint, the more you realize that the paints react different ways. And here I am dropping in just a very slight drop of pure color, like right out of the tube, on there to make the little Christmas lights. They look like they're gleaming. And here I have some acrylic white ink, and I'm just going to use that and dip it in to make the white lights. And same technique. I know I used a Q-tip, but it kind of filled in, so I'm going to go over that with the white acrylic ink, and it's going to bleed out just a little bit and create this fuzzy, warm bokeh type of light effect. All right, I let that background completely dry, and you could see that watercolors, they really when you apply them, they're a lot darker than how they dry. They dry a lot lighter, probably 40% lighter than your initial, when you put down your color, unless you mix it really intense. And I made this kind of watery because I wanted to blend together and be sort of the background, because we're going to paint over it later and put in the foreground branches. And here I'm doing the same technique where I'm just painting in one ornament at a time, just get it completely wet. And we're going to drop in color wet on wet. And you can see it's not dripping. There's even some spots where I missed the water. But I'm going to just drop that color right in and let it bleed and go right up to the other one. And you want to, add in your Christmas ball here, you want to add lights and darks, shadows, and some reflective colors. So we're going to make some yellow dropped in there because the other ornament's going to be yellow. You might see some green from the leaves. We're going to leave a spot on the side. Make sure it's the same side that the light could be coming from for a bright reflection of light. So I'm using a bright red. It's probably a cadmium red. A lot of my colors are just very basic from the tubes, like sets that you get. I don't like to get any crazy colors. Every once in a while I'll get a pretty color that I really like, but I really like the basic colors because you can mix them to do anything. So here I have I think it's a Payne's gray that I mixed with a little bit of like a purple that I had in my palette, just to put that dark area in the middle of the ball. And I dropped in some orangey red and orange color there. It's a light orange, it's a yellow orange. And then I left the white highlight, and I'm going back in with my Q-tip and just pulling out a little bit of the color around the edge for reflections. And look how that's really starting to move and look very much like glass. I'm just going to go around that white area and just add a little bit of water to soften the edge. If I don't like a harsh edge while it's wet, you can do that. You can use a tissue and dab it up if you like. And because there's wetness around it, it should just flow really nice. Now, if you had let it dry too much and you dabbed water in it, you're going to get a bloom. You don't want a bloom. You want to work with it while it's wet. Oh, like just Slightly wet is still good, but it's still wet. So work wet on wet all the time. So I completely let the red ball dry, and I'm doing the same thing with the yellow Christmas ornament. I put a light lemon yellow in there, and then I'm adding some of that orange yellow in there to create this golden type of a ball. I might add some burnt sienna in there. I might add some more of that Payne's gray that I put in the other one because I want it to be consistent. And we're just going to do the same process with this Christmas ornament that we did with the last one. So I'm dabbing in some red to make the other Christmas ornament have its reflection on the yellow Christmas ornament, and I'm adding some green and some of that. Maybe I think that's a little burnt sienna, or it is, yeah, I think so. And then the Payne's gray. So I'm just trying to create that um, idea of it being glass and it being round. And we want to keep those highlights there, the white of the paper. And you just keep adjusting it, because as it, it starts to dry up, it changes, and you can adjust it. As long as it's still damp, you can keep playing with this and getting the effect that you want. I hope you're enjoying this, and I really appreciate you viewing my videos. If you are getting any value out of it, I would love it if you would subscribe and leave a really nice comment. I know sometimes my previous videos had some issues with the focusing, and I turned this canvas around so you could see better what I was doing. So it's sort of on an angle, but I just do this for the fun because I like to teach, and I would like to do this, all the time if I can. So if you are enjoying this, I would appreciate a good comment and a share if you can, and also subscribe to my channel. I appreciate you so much, and there's going to be a lot more down the road. Thank you, and let's keep moving, and we're going to let this dry completely. And that's the hardest part for me, because I'm very impatient and I really want to just keep working on it. But in watercolors, you really need to let things dry. So you can see that area faded a lot, and I'm adding more color to it. This looks like I'm adding just like a more of a burnt sienna or whatever brown I had in there, and just like darkening up that center a little bit to make it look more round, and maybe adding a little bit more yellow, and just making sure that no blooms are forming and keeping those reflections in. And I'll probably go in with and add some white later. So before we start working on the branches in the background, we're going to let this dry as well. So I'm basically just doing this illustration out of my head. So I'm very impatient. I want to get it really dry. And I like the way it looks, so it's good to put the heat gun on if you like the way it looks. But if you want it to bloom more, you want it to sit there and let the watercolor do its own magic. So now I'm going to come in and start doing some branches, and I'm going to bring some brown in and just make some marks that I think where the branches should go. And I literally am not looking at any reference for this. I have been around pine for a long time, and you can see how pretty that one is. And I swear to God, every time I do it, it looks different. It's never the same. Each painting is a little different. Sometimes I like something from each painting. I wish they were all in one painting. But that's the fun of watercolor. You experiment and you're just having fun, and don't stress about it. Just have fun and let yourself go. It's just paper and it's just paint. So and the more you do experiment and you play with it, the more you understand the watercolor, how it works, and you'll be much more confident in your next paintings, because you've already experimented and you went wild and you had fun, so you know what's going to happen, and you'll just get better and better and better. So here I am just dabbing on some brown, and I'm going to add some green, little branches, the little pine needles to it. And I'm just going to be touching that brown. It's all going to blend together and create a very natural looking little pine branch. Yeah, I'm working on this upside down, and it doesn't really matter. I mean, either way, for you to see it, it's upside down. And so I started off with lighter color pine needles, and then I'm just gradually adding some darker pine needles. I use a couple different types of green, probably a viridian and sort of a sap green, and I'll add a little bit of um, brown to it a little sometimes, or blue to it, just to create a variance in the color green, because let's face it, the leaves out there, they're not the same color. They wouldn't be all uniform. They would be some light, some dark, some might have sun damage, some might be, old. And so you look at a little bit of that, and that variation just makes it look more natural. Not being really careful either. And you can see that the brown stem has kind of disappeared. So I'm just dabbing some brown in between each of those little pine needles, and just have fun. Whatever you think looks good, just go for it. And I'm just going to keep doing that until I'm happy with the shapes of my branches, or the composition of my branches. I'm going to put one going another way so they're not all going the same way, and just vary them and have fun creating your pine branches. When I'm done with my pine branches, I'm going to go take like an orangey and maybe a little burnt sienna and paint in the caps of the ornaments and put the little, the little wire that holds them on the tree. And then I will probably add a little bit more of white highlights to it with my ink, or you can use white gouache. I'm just taking a little look at it. I'm pretty happy with this. It's pretty. I'm going to use this as a card for somebody, or I'll scan it in and make a multiple of cards. So if you scan it, all you got to do is put it on your scanner, or even take a photo, a high res with your phone, but do it in like not a sunlit room, but like a shade. So you have natural light. So you don't want the sun beating down on it. You want it in a shady area. So if you go outside and just put it on the side of your house with a shade, take a nice photo of it, and then bring it up to your computer. And you want to make sure that's the highest quality. So your phone will be 72 DPI, maybe at 20 inches or something. So if you were to make your picture like 5 inches, it would be more like 300 DPI, which is what you want to print at, is 300 DPI. If you scan it in your computer, you want to scan it minimum at 300 DPI, and this way you can make a print-on-demand card with it, or cards for just to mail out and make something beautiful to send to your family and friends. Here I am just finishing up the little caps, and I'm going to try to make them look as three-dimensional as possible. I'll put a little line work in there around the edges, and this painting is just about done. I hope you had fun. I really enjoy doing this and teaching and showing you. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.